War of the Worlds towers above as a go-to reference point for extraterrestrial contact stories, and despite it being reimagined over generations, whether as derivative works or direct adaptations of varying fidelity, it retains its 19th century core. War of the Worlds is a story about British foreign policy being turned around on Britain. Let's see how you like being colonized. And it's in that light that I think of The Day the Earth Stood Still, because with the passing of global hegemon status from the British Empire to the United States, so too shifted the mechanism of control. And echoing War of the Worlds, The Day the Earth Stood Still is arguably the best story about US foreign policy being turned on America, complete with a show of force and a firm yet somewhat vague ultimatum.
Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration.
We begin with a flying saucer landing in Washington, D.C., because the spacemen know who's in charge of the post-World War II global order. A delegation rushes over to the park to meet this visitor from another world, with tanks. A little drift for style points there. First contact is made with jacketed lead. Land on Earth, there's gonna be gun monkeys. First slide in the briefing. And this lieutenant is going to be filling out reports and getting reamed by his superiors until Ragnarok. Great timing from Colonel Coverass here, though. Enter the gun-melting robot making a show of force. Relations are not off to a good start. The visitor, Mr. Klaatu here,
Just Klaatu,
is taken to the hospital, and the robot just stands there, seemingly inert by the spacecraft. On that note, you leave your ride parked in DC, and odds are that someone will try to boost it. But they don't have much luck. The technology is so far beyond them that they just can't crack it. Meanwhile, Klaatu slips away, rents a room, and meets some of the locals, including Helen and her son Bobby, who shows Klaatu around town while Helen goes on a date. This was 1951, and Bobby's dad was killed in the war.
That's my father. He was killed at Anzio.
The 1950s nostalgia tends to overlook how many fatherless kids and single moms there were in those early years. Yeah, mom leaves her kid with a strange man for the day. Different time. Of course, he didn't introduce himself as Klaatu Spaceman. He's using the name Carpenter. There's a bit of a Christ allegory here, but it gets a little weird if you try too hard to make it fit all the way through. Though he is here to save us, more or less. See, we're approaching the point of becoming more than a local nuisance.
but soon one of your nations will apply atomic energy to spaceships. That will create a threat to the peace and security of other planets. That, of course, we cannot tolerate.
The nuclear non-proliferation angle is not subtle, but there's also a more general rules-based order angle to this. Klaatu's people, and whomever their once and potential enemies are, have a system that works for them, and they're not going to let some third-world gun monkeys start flying around in atomic death ships janking with the status quo. I have to think about how strange the time this film was made must have been to live in. A lot happened in just a few years. Imagine for a moment that you're living in the spring of 1945. World War II has been raging for years, and someone comes along and tells you that in 5 years we'll have jet bombers in the air 24 hours a day ready to drop atom bombs on the Russians. Well, it's crazy talk, not to mention rather depressing. Those folks lived through a lot of change in a remarkably short period of time. So I suppose it's not surprising that Klaatu's message is less benevolent mentor and more naked threat. There's no clear invitation here. This isn't a case of, we will help you mature and grow into one of the great peoples of the galaxy. No diplomatic outreach or uplift, just an ultimatum. Stay in your lane and out of our sky, or we'll lay waste to your entire world.
This Earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
But the ultimatum must be delivered to the entire world, not just one nation, and not in a way that implies an endorsement of one faction over another. And so rather than dealing with the politicians, he goes to the scientific community, who are entirely apolitical. That was sarcasm. The professor here thinks a demonstration will be necessary to make the point. A little shock and awe to give the message sufficient weight.
Leveling New York City, perhaps? Or sinking the Rock of Gibraltar?
He and Klaatu work out the parameters, though not the details.
Something dramatic, but not destructive.
The demonstration of Earth's helplessness in the face of greater powers is planned for noon the next day, Eastern Time. in a meeting of the world scientific community that evening to deliver the terms. At the appointed time, all electrical equipment around the world ceases to function for 30 minutes, with some very specific exceptions.
And even these exceptions are remarkable. Hospitals, planes in flight, that sort of thing.
Naturally, this puts governments on edge. Full matter of national security mode, with soldiers in the streets hunting for the spaceman. You'd think he would have expected this to stir up an aggressive response, but like the CIA at this time, Klaatu doesn't seem to have quite figured out blowback yet. On his way to meet one of the scientists to hide out before the meeting, Klaatu is shot. Again. Maybe DC has always been a bit sketchy. They take his body to jail because, he's an alien, you never know. But before he was gunned down, Klaatu told Helen that if anything should happen to him, she must go to the robot, Gort, and repeat these famous 3 words.
Klaatu, Barada, Nikto. Please repeat that.
Repeat them exactly.
Klaatu, Barada,
Won't cut it. If she gets it wrong, Gort will destroy the Earth. So Helen goes to the ship, Gort wakes up, and she's terrified beyond the capacity for speech. Which is impressive considering that this is a movie from the 50s where women generally scream and faint when... And there it is. But she gets up again and manages to say the words. They bust Klaatu's corpse out of jail, Gort puts him in the regenerator sarcophagus thing, and Klaatu is resurrected to save the world from its sin. Though he brought the threat with him, so the Christ thing kind of breaks down. But anyway, he finally gives his address to the world. Be good or be destroyed.
We created a race of robots. Their function is to patrol the planets in spaceships like this one and preserve the peace.
A few things really stand out to me about this ultimatum. First is the obvious peace through force element. But there's echoes of American hegemony not only in the non-proliferation aspect of it, but the underlying assumption about why peace is desirable.
We live in peace, without arms or armies, secure in the knowledge that we are free from aggression and war, free to pursue more profitable enterprises.
Markets forward. It makes me wonder what expectations Earth must meet to be eligible to trade for some downgraded technological exports or aid that comes with influence. But most of all, while Klaatu simply arrives uninvited, makes a show of force, and then delivers an ultimatum, he's absolutely sure that he's the reasonable one. Complete moral certainty. The professor agrees, and for the most part, so does the audience. A little imperious paternalism for the good of the lesser powers, good which just happens to align with our own interest, is how the game is played. We don't really fault Klaatu because his aims seem reasonable and his methods, speaking as an American, are our own. Would you rather have the Martians? I didn't think so. But the thing that really stands out to me is the power relationship. Klaatu isn't telling us that if we step out of line, we'll draw attention and set the Galactic Federation or whatever debating about what measures should be taken to smack us down. He's saying that Gort will destroy us, without hesitation, as an automatic response.
At the first sign of violence, they act automatically against the aggressor.
Aggressor. In some cases, it's quite clear-cut, but in others, determining who is the aggressor is a matter of picking an arbitrary point on an escalation curve. Nations usually don't just start wars for no reason. And of course, there's the power balance inherent in that level of oversight. It's more bluntly stated in the inspiration for this film, the 1940 short story Farewell to the Master by Harry Bates. The robot in that case is called Newt. The silent G doesn't work in film very well, so Gort. The last line of the story flips the assumptions about the power structure around. "You misunderstand," the mighty robot had said. "I am the master." If we're still thinking of this in terms of American foreign policy, it speaks to what has happened during and since World War II. Incidentally, the last time that Congress formally declared war. Everything since has been varying mixes of police actions, emergency measures, authorizing resolutions, and straight-up executive decisions. The machinery becoming the master. Just as Klaatu is a rather warped Christ allegory, so too is Gort, an imperfect analog of the military-industrial complex. a mechanism built for a specific purpose that somewhere along the way became a center of power rather than merely an instrument of it. In hindsight, I should stress the element of handing off responsibility.
In matters of aggression, we have given them absolute power over us. This power cannot be revoked.
Gort is a manifestation of, in some ways, a materialist god. Klaatu's people are intelligent, scientifically advanced, but they don't trust themselves to adhere to their better nature. So they make gods to watch over them. You can argue that they made a realistic assessment of the danger they faced and their own shortcomings and used their intelligence and ingenuity to devise a solution. But you can also argue that they gave up. Decided that for all their accomplishments, they believe that deep down they'll always be savages, incapable of governing themselves responsibly. And consequently, they needed to be ruled over by someone else. It's a prospect that I, for one, find deeply pessimistic and depressing. A black pill hidden in the Fruit Loops. I suppose I should at least mention the '08 remake, if for no other reason than as a textbook example of the failure to convert old stories to serve as vehicles for new ideologies. Rather than a nuclear proliferation story, the remake tries to use environmentalism as its core, the reason for Klaatu and Gort intervening. Instead of the message, "we'll destroy you rather than let you get out and destroy others," it becomes, "we'll destroy your planet to stop you from destroying your planet." I'd run a few clips to make the point, but I don't really want to watch that movie again. Often it's best to just let the classics stand. And The Day the Earth Stood Still does.
I like you, Mr. Carpenter. You're a real screwball.